Bonjour, bienvenue à Radio Grandir. Je suis en compagnie de Dave Mackey. Allô Dave,
Allô.
Qui est le fondateur de Motion 165.
C'est ça?
Qui offre la consultation pour améliorer la santé physique et mentale des gens.
C'est ça.
On s'est rencontrés via une amie commune, Vanessa El-Chakier. Allô Vanessa! Qui est consultante en identité de marque. Elle a une approche vraiment intéressante d'amener les gens à pas penser juste à l'esthétique de leur marque, mais vraiment à aller à l'intérieur et à se poser des questions sur qui on est comme entrepreneur, puis c'est quoi nos valeurs, puis qu'est-ce qu'on veut amener dans le monde un peu, puis de construire notre marque autour de ça, qui est une approche vraiment personnelle qui se reflète un peu dans notre propre travail. Je pense qu'on a connecté autour de ces valeurs-là, de la réflexion personnelle, puis on a commencé à jaser assez rapidement de notre vision du monde, de notre vision de l'activité physique, et on est resté en contact depuis.
Oui.
Et aujourd'hui, ça me fait vraiment plaisir de t'accueillir pour parler de ton travail et de ton parcours personnel, parce que je pense que ça va pouvoir inspirer beaucoup de personnes.
Cool.
T'es bilingue?
Oui, bilingue. Anglophone bilingue, c'est ça.
Fait qu'on va switcher en anglais pour l'entrevue, mais ça se peut qu'on mixe un peu
De temps en temps.
les langues quand on cherche nos mots.
Cool.
So starting in English, I was very curious to know, when you were young, growing up, what was your relation to physical activity?
It was huge. So we were 5 kids, and my parents divorced when I was young, and on both sides of the family, physical activity was part of the day-to-day. And it wasn't structured. It was just assumed and part of our DNA. It meant getting up in the morning, and the first thing you did was we went outside. Wow. We did not have a television.
Okay.
So television was not a part of our lives. We were outdoors, or we were reading, or we were writing. My parents oftentimes had us keep a journal. And I think that my father was a very active man. He kind of led the charge on getting us outdoors. We did a lot of camping. We did a lot of hiking and backpacking. Organized sports were not really part of our lives because my parents made it pretty clear that trying to manage the schedule of 5 kids participating in organized sports was not something that they were interested in, because I think it would have meant pretty much sitting in a stadium or a hockey arena
Or driving
all over the place. And they said, that's not something we're going to do. They did say, if you want to participate in organized sports, absolutely, but you need to get there and get home on your own.
Okay.
So for the most part, the sports that we did were local to the community, or, camping trips, hiking trips, that kind of thing. But it figured very prominently for us. And
did it stay with you throughout your life?
It did. It stayed with me throughout my entire life. My siblings, some yes and some no. Okay.
Because when I was younger, I was more active. Like young people from my generation, we used to play outside all the time. Like it was very natural to go outside. And then I played sport in the league. Okay. But during my 20s, I kind of lost track. Then I was very focused on my studies, and I kind of didn't find the activity that would suit me. Okay. And I had this overall idea that now being active means going to the gym, or maybe going camping once in a while. And I really got lost for a while. So I was wondering how you kind of managed growing up, like your professional life, and then keeping that connection.
And I'll tell you how I kept it. I kept it because I'm a runner. And running is something that I don't need to do according to a schedule, and I don't need any equipment beyond running shoes, and I don't need to do it with other people. And what it did was running and walking, you can do them anytime. And I started running with my father when I was 7, and I'm now 49, and I continue to run. And
you run with your son now?
I run with my 13-year-old. I run with friends, my business partner. I run alone. Trail running is my passion. So I'll go to Mount Royal whenever possible, or Mont Saint-Bruno, or Mont Saint-Hilaire, or elsewhere. But just to get up and just leave the house and go running for 30 minutes along the canal or downtown, I mean, it's huge. And I think that's what you said something about in your 20s with your studies. you became less active because the idea, you got the idea that you needed to structure it. It required going to a gym. It required
having a program and tracking stuff. And
that's a big problem, because we have a saying at Motion 165, which is fitness need not be so effing complicated. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. We've all come to this place where we've overcomplicated our lives to the point where we can't even be active.
Exactly.
Because the idea of being active is overwhelmingly complicated in terms of our time.
Mm-hmm. And I think crazy. I was intimidated as well, because I was kind of the person that would make a big goal, like have a big vision, and then it would be so big. And it's this idea of New Year's resolution that you want to do like tremendous results in a short amount of time. And then it gets so big that I was petrified to kind of take a first step. And then I wouldn't do anything. And then I would be in a spiral of feeling guilty. And then having overall this sense that we cannot change. Like, it's kind of oppressive to think that, well, maybe I'm unable to change, and maybe I just have to settle and accept myself the way I am.
Yeah.
And you kind of, it's a dark place to be when you don't even believe that a change is possible.
I get tired thinking about all of the emotion that you just shared with me, all about going to the gym, right? Mm-hmm. I think that people need to be active for the only reason to just move and enjoy the present moment, doing whatever it is that they're doing. Mm-hmm. If every single time you go to be active, you have in your head, you need to lose 50 pounds or 30 pounds, or you need to achieve some sort of societal goal to keep up. Mm-hmm. Hey, sit on the couch and just watch Netflix. I mean, it's much easier.
It happens that way.
Yeah.
And some people like the gym. I mean, I've met people that love the gym, and that's good.
Well, that's cool.
And there are just so many options when you don't like it. And one other problem I encountered is that I thought that somehow physical activity was a waste of time compared to the time I could invest in intellectual activities, working on stuff. And I read that, like, in the States, the schools are kind of they're leading this way because they want kids to have good grades and compete. Then they kind of cut on physical education because they think if they have more study time, they'll improve their grades. But it doesn't change a thing because moving, that's the topic of a book I'm reading right now, Spark. I don't know if you know it.
No.
It's a psychiatrist from Harvard. His message is move. It will help you decrease the amount of drugs you take for ADHD, depression, anxiety. And the case study he did was, if kids move in school, their grades are going to improve because it helps your brain develop. So it's everything that motion is about. It's everything that I'm about as a parent. It's everything that I see with my own kids and with the kids that I have always volunteered with through my son's schools. Zach's, I think Zach's gym time is down to an hour and a half a week. It decreased?
Yeah. It's totally nuts compared to what I was in school. Okay. No, his gym time over the course of his relatively short school career has always been about an hour to an hour and a half a week, which is
so nothing.
Insane.
Yeah.
And we all know that balance in our lives between our mind and our body is what achieves the best results.
Exactly.
Everyone knows this. The school boards know this. Everyone. The psychologists know it. They absolutely know it.
We know it intellectually, but it doesn't really compute. Otherwise, people would act on it, right?
I don't know. It's probably another conversation, but I believe that the decrease in physical time comes as the result of other political and societal norms that just happen to fit the blueprint of today.
I think it's like when you mentioned that free physical activity, like unstructured play, even for adults. Like, the word play is scary for adults. Some people think it's not serious, but it's really that unstructured play is so important. But when we are fearful of not getting some outcomes, we tend to, I think, then we want to structure and control everything. And physical activity can be seen as not as important as some other topics, and it kind of gets put aside. And then
because it's not educational, right? there are some fascinating TED Talks and videos by Sir Ken Robertson, that I highly recommend watching, because he is a big believer that the current educational system needs to be flipped upside down. And part of that is how much movement we give our kids. And you talk to my father. My father's been in the educational world for his entire life. He's a world-renowned mathematician and quantum physicist. And he will tell you that the path to success is to allow kids unstructured time to just be. If my father had it his way, the kids would have a 4-month summer vacation without camp and everything being to the minute. Just let them go.
Even during vacation, we want,
absolutely,
like adults, or like for our kids, well, I don't have kids, but for kids in general, we want to like program stuff. We want to have a schedule, and it's very hard to let it go. It's a learning that we have to do, to just being.
So do you give yourself unstructured time?
I do.
Okay.
I have to put it in the agenda. For example, we said on Sundays, it's chaos day. We don't do anything related to business, and whatever comes up that we want to do, we do it.
Okay.
And actually some days it works well for me. Like when I have an achiever side where I like to have completed or achieved something, then I can rest. It's very hard for me to shut my brain if there's something that I need to finish.
Okay.
But I need to learn it anyway, because with our business and in business in general, there's always something to do. I was
going to say.
There's always something to do, so I cannot work this way. I can't. So I need to shut down, even when there are things that are ongoing. So the other Sunday, I was sitting and it was painful. I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm supposed to, I could do nothing if I wanted to. So it took me a few hours, and I kind of enjoyed it. But but I do see the importance of it and the difference, because I have better ideas. I sleep better when I put less pressure. Okay. My days are kind of longer and more peaceful. So I do see the difference, but it's a cycle, and you gotta break the cycle and learn how to reverse it and be a positive cycle, I think.
Yeah, I think that this is where people need to understand that that famous expression, we are what we eat. Well, if you take it a step further, we are our energy. The quality of us as people is based on the quality of the energy that we bring about in our day-to-day lives. And if we are constantly going from one structured to-do item to the next, and then falling into bed, we're not in a very good place.
No, I think it's not meaningful.
No.
Like, just to be focused on goals and just checklists. It's good to have a structured in some, like being an entrepreneur, I think you need to create your own structure to progress.
I agree.
But then you have to have the switch on when to play and just have fun.
And when to recognize that the playing makes you a better entrepreneur.
Exactly.
And it makes you a better parent. It makes you a better...
everything.
Whatever. Yeah.
So you were an active person, but I don't think you chose a professional path at first that was related to health or physical activity. Or...
No, not at all. I was in the nightclub business.
I forgot.
Which was not healthy in the slightest.
The opposite of your life right now.
Alcohol, drugs, long hours. The what goes with a Montreal night scene. It was 6 years of that. And then I went into the steel industry. And that's a very corporate environment. Why did you choose those two domains? When we closed the bar in 1992, I knew that I was very happy to have left it. I was a very atypical club owner. I had stopped drinking. I never smoked. I didn't do drugs. I was a pretty straight-laced club owner, and it was wearing on me. My brother had died. My 24-year-old brother had died in the 6 months before we closed. So it was a very difficult year. And I just decided it was time to move on to another phase of my life. And an opportunity came to work in a corporate environment. And I took it. And but it was a very corporate, a lot of travel, just a normal corporate job. And then it was much, much later that I got involved in health and wellness as a profession.
Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, what brought you to the club industry in the first place?
Just my brothers. I had two brothers that were working in it, and one of their colleagues was sick, and I was asked if I wanted to fill in. I was 16 years old.
Okay.
And
so
I said, sure.
You had a bar and you were not even allowed to drink.
Well, so at that time when I started, I just worked like every other employee.
Okay.
And then as I got a little bit older, I had an opportunity to become an owner and in another business, which I took. And
did being in the bar industry, like the social aspect of it, was it something you enjoy, like being surrounded by people?
Yeah, because I have a very strong introverted side, and I also have a extroverted side. I kind of figure I'm maybe 60-40 introvert extra. So I did like it, but I also found it tiring. But I like the business side of it. I've always been interested in business.
Okay.
I've always been interested in building organizations. I love bringing people together. So yeah, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
And then being in the corporate job, did it suit you?
No, because I'm much more entrepreneurial minded. I did very well in that world. Actually. I missed the paychecks. I will admit that. Because being an entrepreneur can sometimes, you know what it's like. But yeah, I did very well, but I wasn't aligned with it. Mm-hmm. It was wearing at my soul. Mm-hmm. I was away from my family all the time. I wasn't being active because I was traveling constantly. Mm-hmm. I was sitting through meeting after meeting after meeting, and I wasn't really being what I would call productive at all. Despite being in this big corporate position and achieving what the corporation wanted for Dave Mackey, I was not at all productive. Through my own personal self.
And when did you realize that it was not aligned?
I was 29 when it really got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. Yeah. And I resigned at my wedding, actually.
On your wedding day?
Yep. Yeah, I just said, you know what, I don't
like in the movies.
Like in the movies.
Just calling and say, I'm not coming to work tomorrow.
Which was either a good decision or a bad decision in the moment. Financially, probably a really bad decision. Mm-hmm. But I just couldn't do it anymore. Was
it a physical, like did your body stop and just, like you couldn't get up in the morning and that would tell you it's too much, you just don't do it? Or it was physical, it was mental? It was mental. It was an emotional sort of mental place that I got to that just said, this is just not working for me anymore. And I was supposed to get on a plane. I mean, I had my wedding and I had a honeymoon, but the thought of going back to it was just killing me. I was just having a hard time with it. And it had nothing to do with my colleagues or the industry. Yeah. My colleagues were fantastic. I had a great boss. It just wasn't me. So. And how long did it take you to find the health industry? And is it a journey that you took for your own self and then it kind of... That's exactly what happened. After I left the corporate world, I started to get back to hiking and climbing, running, just being active. I started to get back to volunteering, and which was always important to me. I started volunteering when I was 12 or 13 years old, and it was always something that spoke to me. And so as I got back to it, I had an opportunity where I was helping a friend of mine get fit. And she just offhandedly said to me, you know what, you should make these trainings that you're doing with me available to other people. There's this platform called trainingmobs.com, which is gone. It's no longer, but it was like the Facebook of fitness. And it was just a place where you could bring people together to get fit. It would tell you like free trainings that you could do in the city, mostly outdoors, I think sometimes. Most of them were outdoor. A lot of them were outdoors. A few years ago when it was starting. That's right. So there were running mobs, there were core strength mobs, yoga mobs, I mean, you name it, CrossFit mobs. And so I said, okay. And I posted it and found myself suddenly showing up on a Thursday evening on Mount Royal to these huge groups of people who were total strangers to me, who were coming to get healthy
but I quickly realized that they were coming to get healthy socially, mentally, and physically. That the exercise that we were doing was almost incidental to why they were showing up. And it became a real passion for me, and something that we ended up building this huge community where we would have sometimes 70 people showing up for a training, which is to see it is kind of crazy. 70 people is a lot of people. And the city of Montreal allowed us to use the lookout, La Maison Belvedere.
Yeah.
So we had access to the inside during the winter, and they would allow us to do our thing on the mezzanine or the outdoor area. And we became known. I mean, we did it for 8 years. Tourists would come, hotels would send people and say, you should go check this out, take pictures. We just became known as this free, community-based group that would have social events, trainings. I would do a potluck at my own home for 100 people every 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And so we built this really strong community. And that is where I started to dive into the connection between mind health and physical health, and the strength of community and receiving support to combat all the stuff that you talked about, which was, it's overwhelming. I can't do this. I got to schedule it. I'm embarrassed. I'm shy. I'm not good enough. It just, and yeah, that's how it started. That's how it started.
And how did you, because today Motion 165 is focused on people that have maybe a more acute pain or illness in their life. Is it?
Yeah. So 2 years ago, we found ourselves at a place where, because Motion 165 was always run as a not-for-profit, it was a charity. There was no money exchanging hands. So myself and my co-founder, we were working, 20, 30 hours a week for free. And on top of it, had our full-time jobs. And I had a really bad burnout 3 years ago. And I was working for a company, a biometric tech company. And I found myself unconscious between two cars in a parking lot in Old Montreal. I collapsed. And that forced us to have a conversation around, when I got out of the hospital, we had to take a long, hard think about what we were doing. So we said, we either close it, we either shut down this 8-year-old entity, or we try and we focus on it full time and try and build a company out of it. And I actually had made the decision to close it because I was having a really hard time seeing past my health issues with my burnout. But there was something pulling at me that it felt really wrong to walk away from what we had spent so long building. And I was aware that I really felt like my purpose was to help people and to connect with people and help them towards a better place. I couldn't do the work for them, but I know that I have in me the ability to guide. And so I said to Sarah, let's do it. So I left. I was no longer with the company, and we have been for the past 1.5 to 2 years focused full time on building Motion 165 as a company whose purpose is to help millions of people bring about positive change. So
it's a for-profit with a social mission.
Exactly. Yeah, we're a social enterprise.
And when you had your burnout, did you see it coming, or you were so kind of active and disconnected that you didn't realize that you were that tired?
For 4 months before the collapse, I had been getting really bad dizzy spells. I would be sitting at my computer, at my desk, in meetings, in my car, and I would have to fight really hard to come back from the edge of a blackout. And honestly, I thought that I was either hungry or that I needed to train more. Right? I thought maybe I'm not being active enough. And I was already running. I was doing like 8 workouts a week. I never made the connection between sleep deprivation, massive stress, and just a shot system. And so the signs were there. Loss of memory. So I had loss of memory, shaking hands all the time, and these wicked dizzy spells. And I found every reason in the book to make it something other than a burnout.
And did it happen before in your life?
No.
There's a quote from Oprah that I love. She says, life whispers before it screams. And we just gotta learn to listen before it screams.
I would agree, 100%.
And in my case, I didn't have physical symptoms like this. I know my sisters were they're anxious or nervous, like they don't digest well, or like they have skin.
Okay.
I didn't have the exterior physical signs, but looking back, there were so many whispers and screams that I didn't listen to. And in my case, it was continuous anxiety that would sometimes ça m'empêchait de me lever le matin. Like I
remember talking with you a couple of years ago about that.
Exactly. And it was like every small action seemed like a burden. Like the idea of getting up to eat was a burden, and just cleaning the dishes. But it's kind of strange when you're in this place, and it has always been like that. I couldn't kind of remember a time where I was really peaceful. So people would tell me, oh, you just gotta relax, Marie, you're too hard on yourself. But there was no place that I could go to, like a peaceful place that I could relate and kind of be able to understand what it is to be relaxed. I had no...
Because your reference point, right, your reference points were rooted in anxiety.
Exactly. And the way I was thinking and how I saw the world, I thought it was, it becomes a norm. And then we don't realize that things can be better. And somehow, as much as I was anxious and I felt very hard, somehow there was a voice inside of me that told me, it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that it took me 10 years, but I kind of follow that very tiny, tiny, tiny voice that tells me it can be better. And I'm glad I listened to it. And I don't know I think, do people that come to you, they already believe in change and they want to change, or they're still skeptical or kind of feeling helpless? Like, people that come to you, in which space are they?
So it's an interesting question, because in the 8 years as a charity, we really went after people. I would meet someone, I could sense and feel that they were in a bad place, and I would do everything to bring them to us so that we could help them. And then we would have other people who would come to us ready for change. They had arrived at a place where the status quo was no longer feasible. And in some people, it was no longer feasible because they couldn't go to work. In others, they were having suicidal thoughts. In others, their marriage was falling apart. They weren't being a good parent. They were having digestive issues, and they were chronically, they were just ill all the time. The success rate with people who came to us really ready for help was about 90%. And the success rate with people who we would chase after was about 10%.
And it was much more efforts, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. And so when we started the new Motion 165, the social enterprise with a for-profit and a different vision, we had to make the decision to focus on people who, when they come to us, they are ready for change, because we can't do the change for them. We can guide them and educate them and support them and be there for them, which we are, but we can't do that hard work for them, because it has to come from within. Did you know that, or did you learn? We learned that. I didn't know it. In fact, for years I fought it, because my desire was to help everybody, which almost killed me. Do you feel like do you took the responsibility of the other person on Absolutely. You? I still do, to a degree. I'm much better at I don't remain distant. Psychiatrists and psychologists will tell you that they remain distant and detached as best as they can from their clients. I don't do that. I must say, I went to therapy with different
And I must say, I don't truly believe in complete detachment. It's not human
Makes no
to have
sense.
someone in front of you that doesn't react to what you
Nope.
say, when sometimes you do need emotional connection. And when the last psychotherapist that I had, I shopped for it. Like I called a few places, and just his voice on the phone, and he was reacting like he was something interrupting me, which I must, maybe they're not trained like that, but I enjoyed it because it was a discussion. It was
because he was present, he was participating,
exactly,
he was involved.
Exactly.
That's how you help people.
And it did help me a lot. And I also had the classic therapist like you see in the movies that wouldn't say a word, and then I would talk for like 50 minutes, and she would say, what do you think of
exactly? I was just going to say,
what do you think
think
of the word control? And which was a very good question, and I still think about it. And she also asked me that there are two questions I remember. She said, whose approval are you seeking? If it's because I realized it wasn't my parents. Like I think a lot of people, they have this relationship with the parents, and I realized it was other people in my surroundings, and then it worked, but I felt like I needed a human connection, and I kind of had to look somewhere else for.
And that's something that we hear from people all the time, that the detached approach to help doesn't work so hard. Mm-hmm. It doesn't work so well.
And I think the intention is that you don't want to be involved in the person and kind of bring your and kind of take the burden of it. But I don't know. I think there's a healthy way to help people, and it's hard to accomplish because I do have this sense of responsibility in the world, where when I know there's a social or environmental problem, I feel somehow responsible for it. And knowing there's a problem, it's very hard for me not to address it. But I do have to choose. But
I think that's okay. Mm-hmm. Life should not just be a bowl of cherries, right? It shouldn't be sitting in front of Netflix all day. Mm-hmm. If you want to do something that you're passionate about, and you've gone to school to help people, then it should be hard. Mm-hmm. It should take of you, because that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So for me, helping people, coaching people, supporting people is about empathy. It's about connection. It's about giving them the real understanding that they are not alone, and that they are going to achieve what they want to achieve. And then they're going to go off and live a happy or balanced life. Not that we always have to be happy, because that's a whole other thing. We don't have to be happy all the time.
And there's a performance stress relating to, we think we have to be happy all the time, and that not being happy is not normal. No. And there's a perfectionism about mental health, like being sad is a failure, and
being sad is important. I have a tattoo on my forearm and on my finger that specifically speaks to the need for the deep darkness of life and to the beautiful brightness. You can't have one without the other. It just doesn't work. It all comes back to balance. Who has ever gone through life never having experienced trauma or sadness? No one. And if you run from the trauma, all you're doing is sweeping it under. It's just going to keep coming back at you, coming back at you, coming back at you. And I think that if we're kinder with ourselves and we accept the fact that it's okay to be anxious, depressed, angry, sad, happy, whatever, you suddenly get people who are much more calm, because they're not trying to live up to a standard that frankly is bullshit. It doesn't exist.
And you kind of, when you feel guilty about being sad or being anxious, there are so many layers of negative energy relating to, I feel guilty being anxious, and I feel shameful being guilty.
You know what helped me with anxiety? Was during my burnout period, that whole thing, your body chemistry is so screwed up that the emotional roller coaster that you're on as a result of ill-performing adrenal system and body chemistry, you can find yourself 1 minute totally fine and the next minute feeling like, your best friend just died. And what helped me with anxiety was acceptance, was the ability to just say to myself, okay, I'm feeling I'm feeling absolutely horrible right now, but that's okay. Makes me normal. And this too shall pass. I had moments, I remember spending 2 hours in a shower because the anxiety was so strong, but I just said, you know what, we're just going to let this go. And that was huge for me. And so now if my son or Alicia are feeling stressed or anxious or angry or sad or whatever it is, I'm like, that's cool. Sit with it. Enjoy it. Because it shall pass.
It's very hard to do that. We kind of want to solve it, or we want to...
Because that's what we're taught.
To be somewhere else, or we want to solve it. I'm the kind of person, if I hear someone is not going well, it's very hard for me to... Like, the first step is to acknowledge how the people feels. And that's it. That's the thing to do. But my mind wants to fix it. Like, there's this solution and this solution, and you should do this. So I like, there's the voice I have in my own head, but I try not to do that for the people. Like, to just be there with the emotion and acknowledge that it's okay to feel that way. Like,
it's absolutely okay. And that's the thing, is we need to stop fixing everything.
Like, we're broken.
Right, because to fix something suggests that it's broken. But we're not broken. We're complex people. We're a complex species that we don't even understand what's taking place in human beings. Barely. And what little we do understand should show us that we are extremely complex, and that we need to stop thinking of ourselves as needing to fit into a very specific box, and just be.
And how do you bring people to kind of accept it, acknowledge where they are, and still bring them the energy of their hope that they can change and that they can improve something? Like, it's...
Well, I think it starts with, there's the conversation of acceptance, right? There's the conversation of, it's okay to be anxious. It's okay to feel depressed, and it's okay to not be happy at work, or not happy in a marriage, or whatever it is. There's a conversation around acceptance that has to happen pretty quickly. There's also the conversation around what are some of the actual physical factors taking place in your lives, because we know that sleep deprivation is really, really big.
Yeah.
And if someone, at the root of it all is sleep. That's the one thing that I learned. I ended up, through my burnout and all the research, because I'm a guy that likes to dive into stuff, what became really clear is that sleep is the focal point of our health. And if we aren't sleeping properly, we have a big problem. I don't know if there was a study that came out about the changes in the spring and the fall with the time change. Okay. So they've done a long study, and they've looked at fall and spring. In the spring, we lose an hour. We spring forward, so we lose an hour of sleep. In the 24 hours following the clock change, heart attacks rise 24% on average. Wow. In the fall, when we gain an hour, they decrease 21%. Wow. And it's been taking place year after year. It's too much to be coincidental. That's 1 hour of sleep.
Imagine
chronic sleep deprivation. So I was a guy who slept 3 to 4 hours a night.
I don't even know how you could stand up and be...
Because I thought sleep was a waste of time.
Yeah.
I literally thought sleep was a waste of time because I had so much that I wanted to get done.
I felt weak sometimes being tired. I thought my mind can overcome and transcend. Because that's the world tiredness.
We live in. People go to parties and boast about how little sleep they've got.
Yeah.
Dude, I was at the office till 2 this morning. And I had to be back for a meeting at 7:30. Rock on.
Do you think it's changing? I think since Ariana Huffington is talking about it so loudly.
Yeah, she has a book.
I'm so grateful she's doing that. And she says, like, CEOs admitting that they are meditating and sleeping 8 hours is a revolution.
It's fantastic.
It's and there's a coming out.
Right.
People need to come out. I think recently Jeff Bezos said he was sleeping 8 hours. So it's so simple, but this top CEO saying that he's sleeping 8 hours and he's a better.
For sure he is. The difference that I feel in myself when I sleep a proper amount, it's just huge. It changed my life. Completely changed my life. So
sleep, because when I don't sleep enough, I eat more carbs somehow. I want carbs, and I feel like my hunger is just out of my control, and I'm hungry all the time, and I'm grumpy. And
do you sleep well?
Yes, I didn't used to sleep well. Like you, I saw it as a waste of time. And I was insomniac when I was younger, maybe a teen. But now it's my favorite. Like, I take naps. I just love to sleep because I do see that it makes a difference. And now we're very strict. Like, we try never to cut on the sleep, to do something, even if it means refusing social invitations.
Yeah.
That and too late in the night. So normally we have very strict nighttime routines.
Okay.
And it's even starting earlier and earlier. Like, for now, an hour before going to bed, we don't use our screens. And
I think that's fun. I really think that's great.
It does make a difference. It was hard because we are addicted to those things, and we don't realize it. And we kind of have, it's like stop quitting sugar. We have to resist the temptation for a long time. But once you feel the difference, you never want to go back.
So just to say that you do never want to go back, but I'm just coming off a 6-week period where I lost my way in sleep.
Okay.
And it really affected me. I sat down with my partners. We have 2 partners on Wednesday. And I said, guys, I find myself going back to a place 3 years ago where I'm working late. We've got so much to do. We've got investors. We've got all this. I'm up till 2 a.m. I'm sleeping 5 hours, and I am a mess. So now I am accountable to my 2 partners. Actually, we are all accountable to each other. So as a company, the executive team, we have a shared sleep log which each partner has to fill in the next morning. And because it has a real impact on our ability to achieve our mission, aside from being a partner to Natalie, to a parent to our children, a person to myself.
And how do you balance? Because I think we are alike on the sense that we are very, I think, rigorous and hardworking people, and our challenge is to relax and allow ourselves just to be and rest. But at the same time, we do need to be very rigorous on a daily basis to follow some routines that are really helpful, like small changes. So how do you balance this? We need rigor and stability, and we also need to let go.
Yeah, so I've gotten much better at letting go since I got sick. Before, I needed to do everything. I needed to be in control. I needed to fix everything. Everything that was on the to-do list was important. Getting sick taught me that I cut my hours in half from one day to the next. I literally cut my professional schedule in half, and nothing happened. No one freaked out. The CEO of that company that I was working with at the time didn't come and see me.
Because you were accomplishing the same amount of work?
Yeah, because the task list never stops. It's like having an inbox that no matter what you do stays the same. Yeah. So then you have to ask yourself, well, okay, if I'm running around working 18 hours a day, but the task box doesn't change, then there's no difference. There's no logical difference between working 18 hours a day and 8 hours a day. It's going to be the same thing. So what I'm doing is actually crazy. Makes no sense. And I'm a smart guy. Well, then I'm going to work 8 hours a day. So in my own business, like you, we have to be rigorous, but I think we also have to take a step back and ask ourselves, what are we doing that is truly critical? There's usually 1 or 2 truly critical tasks that need to be done in a day. The other stuff either can be shared with a partner, an employee, delegated to a third party, or thrown in the garbage. So that for me was a big awakening. And I've become really militant about time with my family. When I'm with my family, when I leave the office, I typically, with the exception of the past 6 weeks, I'm done. Like I don't open a computer. I don't work. I have a rule. I always go to bed and wake up with Natalie. She doesn't go to bed and I say, okay, babe, I'm going to go sit at the kitchen and work more, which I did for my entire professional career. No, when she goes to bed, I go to bed because that's quality time as a couple and for myself. And when I wake up with her. And for me, it's really important. And
that's good to have those anchors.
It's changed my life.
Yeah. And I came to the realization that I have an artistic mind. Like my happy place is talking about ideas and concepts and looking at the future, like anything's possible and the stuff to create. But somehow, like you, I was very hardworking and very strict and rigid on some things. So it was hard for me to accept that I needed more discipline. I was hardworking, but I was not a disciplined person. Like my sleep schedule was very hectic. I wouldn't eat at the same time, eat the same thing. Like I was just really like, it was a roller coaster all the time. Like, and thanks to Vince, who's a very disciplined and stable person, I kind of realized that small daily gestures are not oppressive if you know why you're doing them. Like if it's a conscious, mindful choice, and you do notice the impact it has on you, directly or in the long-term effect, it's the best place to be because you kind of have your routines in the morning, in the night, or throughout the day that it gives you stability. Then in some hours, you're completely free and very energized to do crazy work and kind of live a life that is very uncertain, being an entrepreneur and stressful. But if you have this stability in your life, it's really
because you just said something about having a block of time. That's also really important. It's impossible to truly... You can't think critically and creatively if you're changing tasks and being interrupted every 20 minutes. It doesn't work. And that's actually something that's been missing in my life for the past couple of months. We've been in a place where we've been dealing with a whole lot of different stuff that has fallen on my plate. And I have been bouncing from one thing to the other. And I hate the feeling inside of me. Because I don't feel like I'm getting anything of real importance specific to the mission statement of Motion 165. I just don't feel like I'm getting anything done. And so I know that I've come to a place where I need to remove myself and I need to go back to, I've lost my way a little bit.
And it's good because I think it's always an improving process. And now it took you 6 years to realize how far you went, but maybe before it would have taken months or years before you realized that you were going that path. So it's good because I think you do kind of see more clearly and more
for sure.
rapidly.
The burnout was the best thing that ever happened to me. Despite the fact that it almost killed me, the doctors said to me, we're not entirely sure how you avoided a heart attack or a stroke, but we can tell you that if you don't make the changes to your lifestyle, the next time we see you, you absolutely are going to be here for a heart attack.
How did you feel realizing that you wanted to help people on some aspects and that you didn't apply it fully to yourself?
Yeah. I went through a period where I felt a little stupid in the sense that I really put at risk my son's father, me. I came pretty close to a situation where Zach potentially could have not had a dad anymore. And I also came very close to potentially having some real long-term health problems. And I felt a little bit silly about that. You know, you say cordonnier mal chaussé. It was like that times 1,000. And it made me I went through a place where I was kind of angry. I felt almost angry at the world because the world had allowed me to help others for so long. And yet here I was sitting in a hospital, which made no sense because I made the decision to do what I did. But after a few months, I kind of cleared that from myself, and I was able to take a step back and realize that what I had done to myself. and that I also had the power to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky. I had great support in the medical world, in People in Motion 165.
Mm-hmm.
I had to stop training people, which was strange. But forcing yourself to take a step back. I'm a big believer that sometimes you need to shake the system up,
mm-hmm.
and to really bring about meaningful change.
Mm-hmm.
You can't have the status quo and bring about change. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And so I found myself, having to shake it up.
And I like what you said when you had to take the responsibility of your own life and decision.
Yeah.
And it's very, very scary not to put the reason on something else, like other people,
I could have blamed my job. I could have blamed being a single dad because I had gotten divorced.
Mm-hmm.
I could have blamed a whole
mm-hmm.
long list of stuff.
And then I had to realize that I was scared. I'm someone who is very guilt and shame prone. So I thought I can't take the responsibility because it's like already too much. But then that's exactly what gives you the power, because if you assume that you are responsible for your life, it means that you are the person that can make a difference, and
mm-hmm.
it gives you the power back.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's how we can help people, is making realize that of their own power. Like this.
But this is it. People have the power. People have so much power. The problem is that we're raised in a society where we give that power to others, mm-hmm. right? We give it to educational institutions. We give it to our employers. We give it to the people we date. We give it to our parents.
We give it to tools, and we
give it everywhere.
Yeah.
But we don't, because we also are raised to say yes to everything,
mm-hmm.
right? Be a good child. Be a good employee. Be a good boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife. Be a good athlete, but it's for others. Like, we say yes to everything and we give
mm-hmm.
up our power,
mm-hmm.
when the reality is we really just need to start saying, no, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't work for me. And I'm not going to feel badly because what you're asking me to do, I don't want to do. So no, thank you. And understanding that when we let all that stuff go, suddenly we have a huge amount of power. There is so much power and strength in release.
Mm-hmm.
So much. I mean, I just thinking about it and thinking about our clients and what they have achieved by letting shit go.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not rocket scientists at Motion 165. We're not talking about something that's never been heard about before. We are simply bringing a couple of fundamental tools to people that change their lives when
mm-hmm.
they implement them, because
mm-hmm.
we can't implement them. So by letting go,
but did you have to let go? What was the things that you kept doing that took your energy and drained you?
I spent a lot of years not feeling good enough, despite being a high achiever. Mm-hmm. And being active mm-hmm. and a great dad and all this kind of stuff. I spent years just not feeling good enough. And I spent years feeling like what I had was going to be taken away.
Mm-hmm.
And I spent years, honestly, because of that, trying to please other people. Mm-hmm. I did it at work. I did it in Motion 165. What kind of a crazy nut takes 20 or 30 hours a week to help others for free for 8 years? Obviously, we can say, oh, but it was a beautiful endeavor and you helped so many people. Okay.
If it made you
but when you peel the layers of the onion mm-hmm. back, there was something fundamentally damaging inside of Dave Mackey. Mm. And I needed that group of people to like me. I'm aware of that now. Like, I can sit back and I can admit it. I don't mm-hmm. like admitting it, but I can admit it. Mm-hmm. And that was based in not feeling good enough mm-hmm. and wanting to be loved, wanting to be accepted, wanting to be popular, wanting to be in control. The best thing first of all, I read a book, The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck by Mark mm-hmm. Manson. That book, obviously there's parts of the book that were less less aligned with me. But that book changed my life because I started to say, what happens if I just don't give a fuck? Suddenly it just like, I felt shit coming off my shoulders.
Yeah.
And I started to not care about what I'm always respectful. I go through life respectful, empathetic, connected. I give time to people I help, but I stopped trying to please everybody. And I stopped trying to be liked by everybody. And it suddenly made a huge, huge difference in me. So I can't even remember what the original question was, but
what was the stuff that you were...
So what I let go is really that. It was really the need to please others, the feeling of not being good enough, the fear of not being accepted. I just really decided to say, fuck it. I'm going to be a good person because I am a fundamentally good person, but I'm going to start living life for Dave Mackey.
And it's very hard for me to accept that, like that my own view of the world is already valuable, that I'm already valuable, and that I don't have to do anything to be valuable. And I realized that I was always living in the future, and I thought, when I achieve this, I'm going to be valuable. When I achieve this, I'm going to be X, Y, and Z. But then I would achieve that place, and I was never happy, because even if I had a perfect score or perfect result, I would look at the process and think, if I was so smart, I would have accomplished all this without being tired and stressed. So it was an endless pursuit. But for me, it was normal because it was being driven and being hardworking. But I realized that I had this energy toward every aspect of my life. Like everything had to be perfect. It was like cleaning the dishes was like a drill. Like it had to be efficient, and the dishes had to be clean. And the book that changed my life is the equivalent of The Art of Not Giving a Fuck, but it's called Essentialism. Okay. And the message is the same, is find what's essential in your life. Yeah. And say no to everything that is not essential. And at first I couldn't say what was essential. It's kind of a discovery process. I knew what was not essential by the way it felt. Somehow in my mind, I thought I had to be an extrovert. I'm an introvert. I need to be alone to recharge. And I could spend 2 weeks alone, and I think I would sincerely be happy. But I thought I need to be an extrovert. I need to be loud. I need to be a party person. And refusing a social invitation was so excruciating that I would say yes anyway. But I would go there and I would hope that I could leave as early as possible. And last year, there was a party that was 2 corners from my house, and I was available. Okay. It took me 3 days to decide that I wouldn't go. And the night of the party, I thought I should be a kind person. I should say thanks to people and go there to make them feel good. And I resist the temptation to go anyway. And after that experience, it became easier to say no. But it's always a struggle, but it's improving. And I do feel like I have so much more time to give to things that really matter. And for me, it was hard to accept that just reading a book quietly while drinking a tea is very important to me.
But you know what I'm gonna say something. I'll put something out there, and that is, in not saying no, you're being a dishonest person. Mm-hmm. You're doing yourself a disfavor, and you're going and spending time with people that at that particular moment you don't want to be spending time with.
And I was mindless.
So you're fake.
Yeah. Exactly.
Can you imagine? So I would put forth the supposition or the idea that in saying yes, if you had said yes, you're a worse human being
than saying no.
By far than saying no. Because I wouldn't want you in my home if you were there against your own free will. Mm-hmm. Right? And if you have friends that actually would want you there, even if you didn't want to be there, then you gotta think about who you're hanging out with, right? So there's something to be said for being, I hate this word, but being authentic and simply presenting the world with the version of you that you love and that you are good with, and people will make their own decisions around their behaviors and reactions to you. I mean, the hardest thing that I ever did was stand in a mirror and say, I love you, looking at myself. I remember standing in front of a mirror. I must have been in front of the mirror an hour. I couldn't get the words out, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. We say, I love you to people all the time, but saying it to ourselves, that is different. And for people who are watching this or listening to this or both, whatever it is, I would say, go into a bathroom or go find a mirror and tell yourself that you, that you love yourself. And I guarantee you, a lot of your listeners are going to have a hard time with it. Yeah.
I have a very hard time. I'm happy because it's improving.
But I'm
happy that I see a difference.
That's good.
It's an ongoing process. But for me, what was very hard is to understand that the opinion of other people is not who I am. Oh. Like, I would define myself based on the opinion of other people. So when someone liked me and someone didn't like me, I was very confused because I thought, well, what's my value if someone sees it and someone else doesn't see it? But I realized that it has to come from me. And it's such a relief to go out in the world and say, I'm already valuable. I have nothing to prove. And then when I talk to people and I disagree, it's very easier for me to express my ideas and just say, you're already valuable. I respect your ideas. Here's what I think of the subject, and not take it personal and not attack the other person. But before, like, opinions and what was linked to the value of the person. Like, if someone disagreed with me, somehow I would trust the person less. And now I realize that it doesn't have to do anything to do with it. It has nothing to do with you. Like, people cannot disappoint me anymore. Like, before, it was so easy to kind of, I was judging people the way I judge myself, and I didn't realize it. And you had expectations for yourself. And I had for determined by others. Yeah. Right? So because there's another book, The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz. Yes, I was watching. Les 4 Ententes, I guess in French. Also a very easy read, but fundamentally a game changer. It seems very simplistic. Yeah. But like, the idea of don't take things personal. Yeah. I understood it in my head, in my mind, but really getting that is The 4 Agreements. That book changed my life when I was 31. It was recommended to me by a social worker, and that was a moment déclenchant for me. Yeah, big time. The don't take things personally. That was a big one for me. Huge. I'm much less susceptible right now, because before, when someone said something, it attacked my own self-value, and I would crumble. So I was very fearful of hearing critique and feedback from people. And it's still very hard, because we were talking about it before we started recording, but we are in a business where we are online and we want to reach people online. But sometimes it's very hard, because being connected all the time is not healthy. And exposing ourselves and to critiques is also something that very scares me. But it's scaring me less and less, because I realize that if people critique me, I'm still there. Nothing happens. But before, I was so scared I couldn't even publish anything. Like, I couldn't. Well, I was going to say that when you do a podcast or a video or an art blog article, you are opening yourself up to both positive and negative feedback. You can't have one or the other. You can't have one or the other. No. Well, that's right. Life. No, but you're going to have le lumineux, right? Yeah. It's going to be balance of light and dark. And that's something that we should embrace. I mean, other than the comments from internet trolls, which don't count, some people might not like what we're talking about or what we're saying. Yeah. But that's the beauty of living in a democratic society, right? And I realized that just talking about it, for me, as I see my role, is just to bring ideas forward. And I don't have to convince people. If they like it, they do. Then if they don't, they don't. We had our first troll 10 days ago. And it was very hard at first. And then I realized that I didn't die and that I didn't want to be that person. It made me, the way he made me feel, he's not responsible for how I felt. But at first I felt very bad. And then I thought, I don't want to be that person anymore. And I realized I don't do it online. But I tend to, like everybody, like gossip and critique like stars, like Hollywood stars, and I realized that I don't know anything about those person, and I don't want to bring that energy in the world anymore. And so an experience that was very scary for me, like being critiqued like publicly online, nothing happened and nobody commented on this thing, and to go through it helped me realize that my fear was much more bigger than what it was.
The reality of it, which is usually the case for all of life, right?
And so the people that come to you now, they are at a crossroad in their lives, I think. Yeah,
and we had to. We are part of District 3, which is the incubator at Concordia University, and D3 and our business coach at D3 really helped us focus on who our target market is, because when we came to D3, when we were accepted into the program, our target market was everybody. The world. And so Julie Amel, our coach, was very, very specific and said, listen, you guys, I appreciate what you want to do and I appreciate the initiative, but this is not going to work. So she sent us off on a 3-month, very detailed research project.
Okay.
And we now have our primary category is weight loss, obesity, and type 2 diabetes prevention. And then our second category is professional burnout and anxiety.
Okay.
Those are the 2 areas that we really focus on. We have other areas on our website, but we actually think we'll probably remove them.
Okay.
So we are at an epidemic. We're at a crisis in relation to weight and diabetes. The interesting thing is that it's as linked to mental health as it is to food. It's all part of the same package, right? So everything we do at Motion 165 is about mind and body health, because we're only interested in helping people achieve lasting change. I can tell you to go run on a treadmill and you'll go lose some weight and, stop eating McDonald's every day and we'll get your weight down. And then we'll say, great, good luck. And a month later, it'll come back up.
Yeah.
So we really, really, really focus on foundational change through helping people understand about themselves, what's taking place in the subconscious and the conscious, and helping people really find what they're aligned with. Because you'll find most of the time, people are not living a life that is true to them. And I'm not saying that they have to go quit their job tomorrow and leave their husband and move to Alaska. But with relatively small changes, they can find a much more peaceful place. And through education, they can understand and make changes in their day-to-day life where weight comes down, diabetes is less of an issue, mental health improves. And so that's really what we're focused on.
To focus on the overall well-being and not on the goals of losing weight.
Yeah.
Because it's gonna come.
Oh, and people come to us, and because we have an app, so they're on a platform, they're on our app. We're a team we have social workers, nutritionists, coaches, life coaches, hypnotherapists. We produce content, and that content gets delivered and shared with the client through our platform. And then they also have access to their coach all the time. And we really aim to educate. But when they come to us, they're super stressed out, always about their weight. My weight went up a pound today. Okay, don't care. My weight went down 2 pounds. Don't care. Let's talk about it in 2 months. Right? And we slowly bring them to a place where they're better, they're kinder to themselves and less stressed about things. And so people typically stay with us a good 6 months, because that's where we really start to see some real foundational change taking place.
It's good to bring the focus on habits. I realize in the public discourse around eating well and physical activity is, well, just if you eat badly, just eat well. Or if you're inactive, well, just move, just go outside and move. And then it's not the way to do it, it's the result. If you say like you have to move, it's the end result that you want to, it cannot be the solution. You have to look at the whole system that makes you inactive and kind of address the causes.
Well, by telling someone to just go and move, now what you've done is you've stressed an already stressful life.
Exactly.
So right away, it's day one, you failed as a coach. You're done.
Exactly.
That makes no sense.
And I think I agree. Like the first thing before moving is just, do you sleep enough? Do you enjoy what you're doing in life? Do you have good relationships? Like everything has to build together. But
you know what I'll do is I'll send you, we have a questionnaire that the team designed, and that we have clients, we have a conversation with them on the phone, and then they fill out this questionnaire. I'm going to send it to you, and you'll get a real sense of how we get at determining what the roots of the issues are. Like things like sleep. You know, we have people write us back and say, no, I wake up every hour. Okay, that's a big one. You know, I'm going through a divorce. My kids have been diagnosed with ADHD, and I sleep 1 hour a night. Okay, yeah, all right. No wonder you're not feeling well. So
it's kind of a snapshot of the person at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think that I had a Apple Watch for a while.
Yeah.
And I also did powerlifting, where I had to weigh my food and calculate like my trainings and
macros and calories.
Exactly. And I'm super glad I did it. I realized it was not a way of life for me. Some people in this universe, they like it that way. I realized it was not for me, but what it did help me with is to just have this portrait of my life, because I realized how my hunger was crazy all the time. The tracking device it was tracking my physical activity, and even though I had a perception in my head that I was active, I really was not, because I didn't realize I would spend hours in front of the computer like working. So if we use it as tools to realize our situation, I think it's good. Like I think, like you say, people rely on external stuff, and they sometimes still think that the technology will save their life when you have to take the responsibility. But I think some tools like this, like the questionnaire, can really help you just at first accept where you are, like just realize where you are. But
you no longer wear the Apple Watch.
No, because I kind of try to track it, like, because of using tools to help me realize my state, my emotions. And I also had, with the training, I had to write a weekly journal. So the exercise of just writing how my week went and what went, like this exercise, I kind of internalized it, and I'm more able right now to understand how I feel and did I sleep well or not by myself. So which is why I don't feel like I need. Okay,
so you used it to gain insights.
Exactly.
And now once you have the knowledge and the tools, you put it away.
Exactly.
And at some point, if you still own it, you can pull it out again and wear it for a month.
Exactly.
See, I'm all for that, because that is a situation where you aren't developing a crutch.
Well, you think that the watch knows more than you do. And that's very tricky.
That's the problem with fitness tech.
Yeah.
Right?
Like the machine is going to tell me how I feel, what I need to do. And
no, your body is actually whispering.
Exactly.
Right? You said Oprah whispering.
Yeah.
Learn to listen to the whispers.
Yeah.
Rather than the watch or whatever it is that is in your life.
Exactly.
That's a huge...
And how do you feel like moving your company? So you were... like you made a switch, so you were community-based. Yeah. You were surrounded by people. You had a direct interaction with people all the time, and then you moved online, I think, to increase your reach, and you can operate worldwide.
Yeah. Well, so we... Wait, what's the question? Are we good? Are you good on time?
Actually, I saw Vince move. I think we lost track of time, and it's almost done, but... for sure, we have so much more questions.
You have questions? Like,
no, I actually, I would have so many more questions for you. So I think we'll invite you another time. But I'd be happy to finish on how did it go moving from the real world interventions to online based learning and interaction with people.
The answer to that question is we're working on it, and we don't have a final answer.
Okay.
We moved from a local community-based initiative to a digital global initiative, or let's say United States and Canada, because we feel that in order to bring about a real foundational change, we need to educate a much larger group of people and help a much larger group of people. And there's another element to Motion 165, which is the democratization of physical and mental health support. Because right now, the kind of services that we offer are only available to 1% of the population.
And it's like the resources are spread out. Like it's one therapist there and one nutrition is
and
there.
No one's communicating, no one's talking to each other. If you want to go see a therapist, it's $150 an hour. You need to take half a day off of work. You need to, because you have to get there, and it's just not, it's not achievable. It's not attainable for most. So unless they have a robust insurance plan through their employer or make a significant amount of money, they don't have access to it. But you can't bring about foundational change in a society by taking care of the top 1%. So what we do is our services, it's $130 a month. That's it. And we are doing this because we really feel like if we can bring mental and physical health support and education to a large group of people, then us and other companies like us, and perhaps government organizations and others, can bring about a foundational change. And there needs to be a foundational change.
Exactly. Because
the health issues that are present in society are really reaching dangerous levels. Yeah. Right?
And they're very complex, and we have this mentality again that a pill or a simple solution is going to quickly solve everything. And it's really, really
So my co-founder, Sarah Issa, is a pharmacist. She has been a practicing pharmacist for 10 years. And one of her personal missions is to drastically reduce the reliance on pharmaceuticals because they aren't needed. They wouldn't be needed in the first place if we right now we treat symptoms.
Exactly. Yeah.
But if we start educating, like my son, Zach, the chances of him having illnesses related to inactivity and poor diet, pretty close to zero. Not because he's such a special, smart kid, but because he's been educated. Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And
that's it.
and it's just, we want to roll that, we want to make that available to as many people as possible. I've met people who don't know what protein is. We have clients who come to us who eat McDonald's every day.
And don't compute that it's not good for them.
And don't, because that is what they've been taught. Some of them are living in southern US states where that's for generations. The diet has just been a heavy diet and saturated fat and zero activity. But we can see the magic. We have a client, I can use his name. He's given us permission. His name is Martin Auclair. He has gone from 400 to 222 yesterday pounds. He saved his own life. He's a father to 2 kids. He's a husband. He's a man. He's a person of his own right. He has saved his life. He's 36 or 37 years old. And when you look at the pictures of him, I have pictures of him from 390 all the way down to 222. He lost the equivalent of me, right? I weigh 180, 175 pounds. He lost me, and he changed his life. So it can be done. We know it can be done. Sophie Huet, a Montreal woman, also same thing. These people are saving their lives, and in saving their own life, that's going to have an effect on all the people around them.
Exactly. Your impact is greater than even the people that you help.
That's right. So to help 1 million people, Motion 165 doesn't actually need to take on 1 million clients. We can take on 100,000 clients.
That's a good way to see it.
Because that domino effect, it doesn't always happen. But chances are, if you help someone, if you get someone active, they're going to impact 1 or 2 other people.
Because when people see it, they start to believe it. Even how do we help people that are not ready for change or that don't think they need to change anything, well, it's when they see other people around them.
That's right.
But I'd be happy to invite you again to discuss how, like, the complexity of bringing education and long-term solutions. Also the topic of drug use and
pharmaceuticals, you mean?
Yeah. It's a very tricky and heated topic right now. Google, Facebook censoring alternative health websites.
I know. We run into that problem all the time.
So I had questions on that, but we discussed of so many things that I really have a list of questions for next time. But thanks for being here.
My pleasure,
If
always.
people want to follow Motion 165, where can they find you?
They can find us on the web, motion165.com. They can find us on Instagram at motion165. We have a Facebook page also at motion165. In your show notes, I guess you can put a couple of links. Yeah. But that's the best ways. The best way is just, honestly, is to go to our website.
And I recall that on your website, you clearly invite people to call you and
we do
talk to you.
Yeah, and we give people a free month.
Okay.
People can join the program. There's no difference between the paid program and the free program. It's a full program, and it includes the call, the questionnaire. They can join us for a full month to get a sense of whether or not we are a fit to help them. So yeah, they could do that as well. Yeah. Well,
awesome. Thank you again.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Cool. Okay.